Up everything. Max, listen, the bad headlines seem to dog this White House. Staff turnover, the attorney for Stormy Daniels all over TV today discussing her lawsuit against the president and being paid off to keep quiet just before the election. Is it a lose-lose for President Trump? I mean, he either argues he agreed to pay the hush money and that makes it, you know, a legally binding contract, or argue that there is no contract, which then makes her free to talk about the affair.
You know, Don, there is no other presidency where we could possibly be having this conversation. I mean, could you imagine discussing a previous president paying off a porn star? I mean, this would be such huge news. It would threaten the very continuation of the presidency. And with Donald Trump, it's like the 10th story of the day. I mean, I think in some ways he's actually helped because this story is about sex. And so that's kind of an easy dodge for him in the way that it was for Bill Clinton. He can say this is just a tawdry affair. It's a private matter. In fact, I think there are public considerations here, including the possible misuse of campaign money and also the way that he was apparently black. He was subject to blackmail, which is the very thing that the Christopher Steele dossier was alleging with regard to the Russians. But I don't, you know, the whole Stormy Daniels thing for Trump. I mean, this is chump change. This is minor stuff. Whereas for any other president, this would be a nuclear blast.
Yeah. But to his point, Rick, you think about the Clinton days, right? And I'm old enough to remember the Clinton days and Monica Lewinsky
Yes.
and the whole thing. I mean, people lost their minds about it, and some people, rightfully so. The president, you know, lied. But no one seems to care when it's President Trump. And they could have broken the law. He and his attorney could have broken the law here.
They well could have, and we're going to see if that really turns out to be the case. And they may well have. There's certainly some tax questions, some Federal Election Commission regulatory questions. But, I mean, Don, imagine for one moment the phrase, Barack Obama paid a porn star $130,000. Or George W. Bush paid a porn star $130,000. This country would be in a complete meltdown if that were the case. This country would be having we would be tearing our hair out and rending our garments if that had happened. And in this case, it's sort of like we've defined presidency down so far. It's like, oh yeah, Trump and the porn star. Well, yeah, of course he's with porn stars. I mean, it's just a remarkable moment in our political history because we are now at the point where the president paying a porn star is not the only thing we're talking about in this country. It's really quite something.
When you said, can you imagine, seriously, all of you, everybody listening, if that was a headline about Barack Obama, I'm serious. Everybody's heads would be exploding. Conservatives, Republicans would be going to the microphones everywhere saying this president should be impeached. He has diminished the office of the presidency. He should not be in the Oval Office. Come on.
Right.
It's Go on, Max.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, Don. I mean, I was very critical of President Obama. Remember, I was a lifelong Republican. I was very critical of the Obama presidency. But I had to admit, everybody has to admit, that Barack Obama is a class act, okay? He was not an unethical president. He was a great father. He was a great husband. He was a great leader for our country. He was a man of principle and of charisma. He was somebody who, whatever he thought of his policies, made us proud. Is there anybody in America who can possibly say that Donald Trump makes you proud? He makes me embarrassed. He makes me cringe. I can't imagine there's anybody in this country who is proud to have somebody who behaves this way in the White House.
What do you think of that, Scott?
Well, I think Barack Obama is generally an honorable person. I certainly was not proud of his policies. I was not proud of the way he represented the United States on the world stage, and I thought his foreign policy for 8 years was an unmitigated, complete and utter disaster. All of that having been said, everybody's exactly right. If any other president had done this, it would be the top story and we'd be, having a national freakout. I do think that there's two issues here. There's the political issue, and the president's, moral history is already baked into his politics and his approval rating. But then there's the legal question about the campaign finance issues that Rick raised, which have yet to be decided. I actually think that is ultimately going to be what's most problematic here. I think most people have accepted Donald Trump's relationship with women over the years, but what we don't yet know is how this payment went down and who knew what and when. And so I think the moral piece of it is really already baked. It's just the legal piece we have to discover in the near future.
I think you're absolutely right about that, and I think most people everyone on the panel agrees with you about that. Selena, I'm going to get you in on the other side. I need all of you to stick with me. When we come back, President Trump might very well be on the verge of starting a trade war, maybe as soon as tomorrow, and he is fine with that. But what about the